President Buhari in Dubai set to attend 9th edition of Emirates Annual Investment Summit.
Vice President Yemi Shibajo commemorates the 25th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide in Kigali, along with other world leaders.
Federal government concludes training program to boost the country's leather industry.
And on Good Morning Nigeria this Monday, an in-depth look at the micro-pension scheme and how it will affect Nigerians in the informal sector.
All right, so Kyria, now it seems Nigerians who are working in the informal sector of the economy may now be able to contribute towards their retirement. And this, of course, is on the heels of the launch of the micro-pension scheme by President Muhammadu Buhari.
And that's right, Kingsley. You know that Section 2, Subsection 3 of the Pension Reform Act of 2014 provides that employees of organizations with less than 3 employees, as well as other self-employed Nigerians, should be entitled to participate in the contributory pension scheme following the guidelines of the Commission.
It turns out that these categories of persons in the informal sector of the economy constitute the vast majority of the working population in Nigeria, and they, of course, are not covered by any retirement benefit scheme whatsoever.
Well, you know that before the introduction of the contributory pension scheme in Nigeria, there was no existing pension coverage for self-employed Nigerians. Now, the target of the micro-pension scheme is the self-employed in various trades and professions in Nigeria, such as artisans, mechanics, tailors, hairdressers, accountants, lawyers, and others.
Now, one interesting fact, Kyrian, is that those in the informal sector, as well as the formal sector, but who are self-employed, are estimated to be some 70% of Nigeria's working population. Now, the running scheme, that's the pension scheme, which is a contributory pension scheme, covers just a little above 10% of the total working population in Nigeria, meaning that only persons who are in government employment or in the organized private sector are at present covered by the contributory pension scheme.
Now, the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, is rolling out the micro-pension plan with the aim of guaranteeing financial security for those in the informal sector, with the plan to boost Nigeria's pension assets to over 20 trillion naira by the year 2020. PENCOM also wants to cover 30% of the working population under the contributory pension scheme by 2024.
All right, Kyria, now this is certainly a very ambitious plan, and that will lead us to ask the question, how successful this plan will turn out to be in the long run? And how does PENCOM also plan to get the informal sector, as it were, organized enough to participate in the scheme? Has PENCOM even dealt with the challenges of the existing contributory pension scheme? What guarantees are there to assure Nigerians who will log on to the scheme that the numerous problems already associated with the contribution pension scheme will not be transmitted into the micro-pension arrangement?
In fact, these questions are begging for answers, Kingsley, and we will have guests in the studio to respond to them very shortly as we welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kyrian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kyrian and also welcome you to this edition of a program in which our conversation segment will focus on the micro-pension scheme and what it means to Nigerians who are self-employed or otherwise working in the informal sector. As is our custom, we shall also have our regular complementary segments, and these include newspaper review, business sports, and others. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news, and here's our colleague, Najatu Tijani. Hello, Najatu.
Hello, Kingsley and Kyrian. Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to the morning news with me, Najatu Tijani. President Muhammadu Buhari is in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, ahead of the 9th edition of the annual investment summit beginning this Monday. The president is there on the invitation of the Vice President, Prime Minister and ruler of the Emirate of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum.
The thrust of the administration have been, one, to secure Nigeria, two, to revive economy, and then to fight corruption. There is no way you will revive your economy without going along with the rest of the world. The time when countries operated in silos has gone. Now you have to pull together. And the president has been invited to present a keynote address, after which there will be so many bilateral meetings. There are going to be about 120 countries represented at this investment summit. So it's a vital opportunity for Nigeria to tell the world what it has done, particularly with our economy and with security, because you can't talk of investment without a secure environment, and to also talk about the anti-corruption war, because you know that Nigeria and UAE has an affinity.
And here in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has described the victory of senators and House members elect of the 9th Assembly as an attestation of the trust and confidence their constituents have in them. This was contained in a communique from the president to lawmakers undergoing orientation.
The National Assembly will benefit immensely from your rich experience, ability, and wisdom. I look forward to your joining hands with me as we collectively strive to put in place enabling laws, policies, and programs that will uplift the economic and social well-being of Nigeria.
For the wise, history is sufficient, says Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, as he calls on political and religious leaders to avoid making inciting statements which can lead to destructive actions. This was when he joined other world leaders and dignitaries in the ceremonies marking the 25th national commemoration of genocide against the Tutsi in Kigali, Rwanda.
For Rwanda are very deep indeed, and they're still healing. At 25 years on, you can still feel the pain. You can still hear in their speeches, in their voices, in their experiences, that this is still a very deep wound. I pray that we will never experience such a thing and experience such a thing anywhere again in Africa. But it depends again on leadership.
Now, the federal government of Nigeria has suspended all mining activities in Zamfara State. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Abubakar Adamu, said this at a joint press briefing of the police, military and the Department of State Services in Abuja. The Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, Director General of the Department of State Services, Yusuf Magajibichi, and the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ahmed Abubakar, were at the meeting.
The issue of life and property is irrevocable, and we will not scale down the pressure on the armed bandits until they are totally flushed out. Meanwhile, in the face of intelligence report that has clearly established a strong and glaring nexus between the activities of the armed bandits and illicit miners, with both mutually reinforcing each other, the federal government of Nigeria has decided as follows. Mining activities in Zamfara and its environment are hereby suspended with immediate effect. I want to assure the general public, especially in the affected areas, that the security services are doing their best to address the security situation. May I appeal for the cooperation of the local communities, especially the traditional and religious leaders within the community, to cooperate with the security agencies.
And good news for Nigerian youth. The drive to restructure the country's leather industry and create employment has started yielding fruits. The latest is the successful training, graduation and sponsorship of 64 youths to effectively harness the value chain of the leather industry.
And by doing so, you will be starting a new business. And you'll be in a position to hire people. This is how to create jobs.
On the security front, the Air Task Force of Operation Diran-Mikia has successfully destroyed an armed bandits logistics base and neutralized dozens of armed bandits at Abuja and Wanaka in Birnin Magaji local government area of Zamfara State. The operation was executed following intelligence reports indicating that the armed bandits were using a compound within Abuja as a logistics store to support their operations. Consequently, the ATF dispatched a Nigerian Air Force Alpha jet supported by an intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance platform to attack the compound, scoring accurate strikes on the target and causing it to erupt into flames, which engulfed the structures and resulted in the neutralization of some of the bandits. The Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force, Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola, says the Nigerian Air Force is working in close coordination with sister services and other security agencies to sustain its operations to neutralize the armed bandits and deny them freedom of action in the Northwest. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after this break.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Thomas Daba Ben and Ishak Modibo Kawu. Now, this edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space and evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency, calls from TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And now you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. The federal government strategizes on ways to boost and sustain the country's economy. Chimobi Watanaji tells us on Business News that one of the strategies is import substitution.
As ways of ending the perennial problems occasioned by unemployment of youths, experts advocate more enlightenment on the gains of entrepreneurship. One area identified by them is turning waste to wealth. Some of the respondents noted that the waste management industry can employ more than 40% of the unemployed if adequate attention is placed on it by the teeming unemployed youths.
Government that waste is actually a big source of wealth. We generate more than maybe 500,000 tons of waste per year. Humongous amount of waste. This is wealth. This is money. Every aspect of it. Whether I want to talk of plastic, waste wood, waste food, waste water, tires, waste oil.
This is a really important topic. at this stage because of all the climate change that we have seen. I mean, everybody has witnessed the uprise in the amount of heat. This is coming from climate change and so on and so forth. So waste management in Nigeria is a very critical and important topic in this day and age.
And meanwhile, part of the cardinal provisions of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan is to replace import with export in Nigeria's economy. Essentially, non-oil export is believed to have the responsibility to move Nigeria's economy to the next desired level of growth and sustainability.
Curtail our food imports. B, diversifying our economic base from crude oil dependence. C, empowering local businesses to create thousands of jobs. And D, improving the general well-being of our people.
Won't be dependent on the oil price that fluctuates would be beyond our control. But if we have so many different things we're exporting, agricultural products, other things, and like government is also developing solid minerals. So the shock in one sector will not be something that will affect revenue and cause a recession like we had recently.
The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan plays out government's strategy for achieving its vision of sustained and inclusive growth. With Business News, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
All right, thank you very much, Chimobi Walter Naji, for the business package. Newspaper Review is up next for us, and good morning, Nigeria.
And time to welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer, to the program this Monday. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Kieran. Thank you.
How was your weekend?
Very restful. Good morning, Kingsley.
Well, good to see you.
Nigeria.
I hope you had a lovely weekend, as you just indicated. Well, there are stories on security on the front pages of the papers. Indeed, all of them bother on the lingering insecurity with regard to kidnapping and other activities by bandits. Let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. That's the lead story. Kidnapping poses threat to food security and businesses. That's according to Daily Trust. Kidnapping poses threat to food security and businesses. With 2 riders, federal government suspends mining activities in Zamfara. Buhari, we are serious about fighting insecurity. Now, for the Daily Sun newspaper, the headline is as follows. That's the lead story. Federal government gives foreigners 48 hours to leave Zamfara. With 2 riders, declares war on bandits as insecurity in state is blamed on illegal mining. It's ridiculous to say I'm not moved by killings in state. That's according to President Buhari. And also,
all right. I think I also have that as lead story.
The last one from the Punch. It's also the lead from the Punch. It comes with a kicker. Zamfara killings. PDP advises Buhari as federal government orders foreigners to leave mining sites.
All right, and the same goes for Daily Independent as a lead story. Daily Independent, federal government begins operations to flush out Zamfara bandits with 4 riders, bans mining, gives foreigners 48 hours to vacate. Federal government doesn't care about human lives, says Afenifere. ACF OK's state of emergency declaration. I am the most unhappy president globally, says the president. And on the Leadership newspaper, that's also the lead story on the Leadership newspaper this Monday. Banditry. Federal government bans mining activities in Zamfara with 2 riders, gives foreigners 48 hours to vacate sites, and then NAF and police kill 28 bandits. That's on page 4. Maybe Bayo will have to react before we go to the story.
Let's start with the focus on the food security. Kidnapping has been a threat to farmers, and in spite of government's laudable programs about returning to the farm, kidnappers have become a threat to farmers, particularly in the northwest region of Nigeria. Federal government has consequently suspended mining activities in Zamfara and other affected states for further notice. The Acting Inspector General of Police addressed State House correspondents over the weekend after a meeting with heads of other securities. he indicated that intelligence report indicate that there is a corollary established in nexus between mining activities and illicit banditry that is going on there. Both are mutually reinforcing each other. Consequently, any mining operator who engages in mining after the suspension will have the license revoked. All foreigners operating in mining fields in those areas are closed and are to leave within 48 hours. There is Operation Puff Adder, which the police involved the police and military and other security agencies, and this was initiated to flush out banditry and criminality, particularly along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. This now has been extended to cover Zamfara and a lot of the northwest states permanently. The operation is to reclaim every inch of space from bandits, arrest and bring them to book, and also all the perpetrators of violence in the area. Operation Puff Adder, launched last week, addressed rising incidents of kidnapping along Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. It has now been extended to cover this area. Inspector General of Police appealed for cooperation to traditional rulers and religious leaders in the areas. He also admonished caution, particularly those spreading fake news on the social media. He advises that there should be verification of information before you start posting them on the social media, because those false information are actually aggravating tension and restlessness. Meanwhile, the presidency has appealed for a stop to politicizing the killings ensuing from kidnapping and banditry. While offering condolences to the families of those who have been assured, the presidency assures that banditry and criminals will be neutralized very soon. The deployment is to cover Zamfara, Katsina states, as well as Abuja-Kaduna Express Highway and parts of Niger State. Meanwhile, bandits have attacked a wedding guest at Kakangi in Bereningwari local government areas. The bandits riding on motorcycles attacked the villagers and set some of them ablaze. In the process, the police went there to rescue. 2 policemen were killed, but the police also succeeded in killing 3 of the bandits. They set homes ablaze in those areas. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Air Force has also embarked on Operation Diramikia, and it has destroyed bases of bandits in Ajia and Nowaka communities in Zamfara State. Over 25 of the bandits have been neutralized by the Air Force. Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola of the Nigerian Air Force Public Relations says the Air Force is in close coordination with other sister agencies to stem kidnapping. Apparently, kidnapping has now overtaken even insurgency in the level of violence.
And it's everywhere, in Lagos, in Ibadan, in the southeast of Nigeria, in all parts of the country.
There are reports that even in Taraba State, kidnapping is also on the increase. When they come to you in the house and they can't get you, they follow your children to the school and kidnap your children so that you will be available. It's been very that grave.
All right, there are other stories trending in the newspapers that we have this morning, and let's return to the Daily Independent newspaper. Above the nameplate of a Daily Independent newspaper, we have a crisis in African church, Calabar Rivers, 13 breakaway. It's on page 11. Also on page 11 is a Lagos State fire director, 6 others abducted, just as we just discussed. And police kill 3, bandits lose 2 cops, and first houses raised in Kaduna attack in page 41. All right, now let's go to other stories. Besides the photograph on the Daily Independent, we have there's an accident scene actually along Katari Village and Kaduna Abuja Highway. It happened just yesterday. You can see people trying to rescue the victims. Now there are stories trending by the side of that picture story. Dixon offers employment to 307 PhDs and master's degree holders, medical doctors in Bayelsa State. It's on page 11. Now, rollout of new meters from May 1st, not realistic, says manufacturer. It's on page 41. Maiduguri bomb blast, 5 persons killed, 45 injured. Page 41 is where you get that story. Also on page 41, PDP raises alarm over alleged plot to annul rivers pools. That's all from Daily Independent.
All right, that last story you read is also there as an earpiece on the front page of Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun, beside the nameplate, says PDP accuses AGF, that's Attorney General of the Federation, and Amechi of plot to annul Rivers election. With a rider says party wants to instigate constitutional crisis. Details can be found on page 40. Now let's come to the headlines below the nameplate of Daily Trust newspaper. Three of them says Senate presidency, that's the kicker. APC must field one candidate. Details on page 13. Oshibajo returns from Rwanda, that's page 3. Discos get federal government's approval to sell meter at 37,000 naira. That's on page 17. And also very quickly from the Punch newspaper above the nameplate and then one earpiece there. That's RMAFC, that's Revenue Mobilization and Allocation of Fiscal Commission, set to probe 22 banks over stamp duty collection. Page 34. Saraki urges Qatar to end visa restrictions on Nigerians. Concerns as 211 Nigerian oil blocks remain idle. Page 31. On page 32, it's also the allegation by the PDP against Amechi and others seeking to plot a constitutional crisis in Rivers. Here, piece there says Lagos, Edo, Kaduna, and Cross River owe over half of state's foreign debt. Details on page 34.
Yes, that report is from the Debt Management Office. Yes. There are indications and conflicting report that the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria may have resigned on Friday. The news of his resignation came barely 24 hours after the National Judicial Council sent recommendation on allegation of misconduct against the suspended Chief Justice to the presidency. The suspended Chief Justice is facing a 6-count charge of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Some papers report that the suspended Chief Justice forwarded a letter of resignation. Another paper quoted his defense counsel as saying that the suspended CJN forwarded a notice of retirement. It may be recalled that an NGO, the Anti-Corruption and Research-Based Data Initiative, RD, wrote a petition against the Justice Onoge 7th of January over non-declaration of assets. This led to his suspension and subsequent trial. The defense and prosecution are to address the tribunal on 15th of April after the former CJN made a no-case submission. Also, an accurate division of the Court of Appeal has ruled that Senator Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party is eligible to contest election in Osun. This supersedes the Abuja High Court ruling last week, which said that he did not possess the valid secondary school leaving certificate. The appellate court dismissed an appeal against an Osun State High Court, which had earlier confirmed that Senator Adeleke was eligible to contest. The Court of Appeal in Akure dismissed the appeal on 3 grounds. One, that the court had no jurisdiction. Secondly, that the sponsored petitioner had no local standard to bring the case. And thirdly, the matter was brought to court outside the stipulated 14 days after the conduct of governorship primaries. The petitioner had alleged that Senator Adeleke is not qualified for the first runners-up for the governorship primary should now be the winner, not having had, according to him, secondary school leaving certificate.
All right. Okay, now to the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, above the nameplate, federal government links Zamfara banditry to illegal mining, gives foreigners 48 hours to quit mining sites. And then on the right-hand side of this back page, or the front page rather, Air Force helicopter blade kills aircraft man. It's on page 2. And now the lead story on the Nigerian Tribune is on the Rivers pool. PDP raises fresh alarm, alleges plot to void election. APC won't interfere in matters before court, says a spokesman. Details of that on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. And I will have some stories also trending downwards. Lagos Fire Service Director, 6 others abducted. So where that's in another newspaper is on page 3 on the new Nigerian Tribune. And woman taking daughter to school dies after vehicle plunges into river in Ogun State. There's a sad one there. It's on page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, I don't have other stories. I just wondered, Bayo, before you...
yes, I wanted to draw attention to another brewing silent conflict there. Refugees are amassing across the border between Taraba and Benue State, because there's now a rising between Tiv and Jukun crisis. And this started when youths of Wukari area stopped the thieves' youth from coming to a market. They said that it was traditionally their own market. This has led to conflict, and the local government chairman and traditional council are trying to find a solution. Meanwhile, hundreds of persons have become displaced from the conflict, again from TV and Jukun crisis in Taraba State.
Okay, before we go to the editorials, let's return to the leadership newspaper. Below the nameplate of a leadership newspaper this morning, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to probe 22 banks over unremitted stamp duty. And just below the photograph on the front page of leadership newspaper, South may get deputy senate presidency, says Oshomale, the APC chairman, is on page 5. Now, Bago's speakership bid gains traction. All right, there are other stories. The PDP alleges plots to invalidate Rivers governorship poll. Federal government malls healthcare fund for Lassa fever patients on page 6. Customs withdraws task force from Lagos ports on page 31. I have no regret over senatorial poll loss at Jimobi on page 35. And now to the editorial.
Before you take the editorial, just back to the Zamfara banditry and the drastic step that the federal government has now taken, requiring all foreigners and all those who are involved in mining activities to vacate the state within the next 48 hours. There are a number of matters arising from this. If you recall, was sometime last year, the governor of Zamfara offered cash for guns. He said anybody who turned in an AK-47 will get $1 million. But you recall, Kieran, you and I were set on that occasion. That didn't seem to have assuaged, the bandits. And then why Zamfara? Why did the matter fester for so long a time before, we started taking these drastic steps? And is it only in Zamfara that you have mining activities or illegal mining activities? And, why would the kidnappers or the bandits also be attacking farmers?
But my take, before Bayo comes in, my take on that is that whatever happens in any geographical area is a function of the behavioral or pattern of people living in the area. There are mining spots in the forests, because mining is not done in the city, in the forest, and these bandits also operate from the forest. So the federal government perhaps is thinking that there's a kind of synergy going on there, because these two groups operate in the same vicinity. And of course, there's no way you can now determine who is directly involved or not. But if the two groups are there in the forest, there is a link. There is a belief that something is going on there, because this has persisted for a very long time.
I think the intelligence indicates to the security agencies that there is a connection between the mining activity. Particularly, mining is for gold, and it has attracted a lot of foreigners, some from Far Asia, some from West African countries who are indulging in a lot of illegal mining. And you also will recollect that some of the insurgencies and the bandits are said to possess arms that have come from the conflict from Mali and those other axes, so much so that they have sophisticated weapons, more than even some of our security agencies. And apparently, they are driving away the villagers from the areas that they suspect have these rich minerals. And that is where the emphasis of the banditry is harming the farmers and driving them from their abodes, because they are apparently living in an area that is rich in mineral resources. But the security agencies have their intelligence and they are following through. But the positive thing is that if there are people who were doing their mining activities legally, they are covered in law. But because of the challenges, now everything has been put on suspension so that they'll clear the nexus and people can go back to their legitimate activities. However, the danger there is that people who are agrarian farmers are having their livelihood threatened. And that's why Daily Trust is saying that the famine could be looming, because if we are going back to the land to farm and the famine is threatened, then there is a challenge of food security.
All right, well, let's hope that the federal government does what is right to ensure that people in Zamfara State are safe. And now to the editorial for this morning, taking from the Inquirer. Now, JAM's far-reaching reforms. On the March 18, 2019, the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board announced a critical stakeholders meeting in Abuja that it has put certain innovations in place for the successful conduct of the 2019 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME. Let's bring in Bayo here for further analysis on why Inquiry took up JAM as its editorial this morning.
I think the editorial is happening on the fact that since 2016, JAM has abrogated scratch card said to be corrupted, and in the process, it has introduced a pin vending system to ensure a lot of credibility for the examination. But it is saying that the next JAM exam, which is scheduled in a couple of days' time, has now had some innovations put into it. There's now what it described as a robust item of bank of open examination questions. And it says that there will be 1 million questions per subject. Other innovations that is said to have been introduced include separate dispensation created for the hearing impaired. The editorial is referring to the challenge that has been long identified by the Orosai Committee that said JAM was very relevant, but there was need to rid it of some of the nuances that was making it, undermining the credibility and as well as the validity of the examination that it was conducting. But it also drew attention to the fact that since the advent of the current registrar, there have been tremendous successes, and particularly with revenue generation and examination. And it's particularly pointing out that the latest challenge is that some computer-based centers have been disqualified, and there is a possibility that on the day of examination, candidates will be roaming about not knowing where their centers are, and therefore the potentials of them mixing the examination. And something has to be done very quickly to enable candidates identify their centers before the date of the examination.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much for being with us. See you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're getting ahead with our discussion today, which is on the new micro pension scheme for those in the informal sector and persons who are self-employed.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Thomas Damaden and Ishak Modibo-Kawu. Now, this edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency, calls for TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Marketing of broadcast media products requires special skills which can only be acquired through training and experience. NTA TV College Jos is therefore organizing an intensive 3-week course on modern trends in broadcast media marketing. The course will equip participants with necessary skills to deal with contemporary marketing challenges and competition in the broadcast media. It is an essential course for marketers in the broadcast media to sharpen their skills and improve their capacities. Date, 23rd April to 10th May 2019. Venue, NTA Television College Refuge Jos. Cost fee, 100,000 naira per participant, accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, please contact us on 0803 314 4383 or 0806 980 9807. NTA TV College Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
And now, to set the tone for our conversation this morning, here is a backgrounder on the micro pensions plan put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The recent launch of the micro-pension plan by President Muhammadu Buhari is said to have brought a level of relief to pensioners. Some say the launch brings a ray of hope, ensuring regular receipt of pension entitlements to pensioners when due. It was initiated by the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, to bring financial inclusion to all working Nigerians, including the self-employed in the informal sector and employees of organizations with less than 3 staff, traders, unions, non-governmental organizations, and others.
The government will continue to support the National Pension Commission to ensure a successful rollout of the product. The Financial System Strategy 2020 is also hereby directed to support this initiative within the framework of its activities, especially as it relates to financial inclusion. In addition to this program, we are also working tirelessly to sanitize some of the rot within the pension system we inherited.
It noted that the informal sector constitutes an estimated 69 million workforce in the country and represents an estimated 88% of Nigerian workers that lack pensions and safety nets for their old age. The plan is to achieve coverage of 30 million people in the informal sector by 2024. In light of this, many questions are begging for answers. The most commonly asked has been, how will the micro-pension plan be funded? How beneficial will it be to the market men and women in the long run? What happens to the current contributory pension scheme and the problems already associated with it? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will provide answers to these and more very shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background. Now let's introduce our guests who are here with us in the Abuja studios. First, we'd like to welcome Dr. Farouk Aminu. He's head of Investment Supervision Department at PENCOM. Dr. Aminu, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, thank you.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Chief Abiodun Akonji. He's a retired Deputy Director of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and also a pioneer member of the Nigerian Union of Contributory Pensioners. Chief Akonji, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay. And also with us here in the Abuja studio is Adamu Modibo. He's a former Managing Director, Sigma Pensions. It's a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And also we have a Professor Seth Akulson, Professor of Economics, Cardinal State University. We're glad to have you here this morning, sir.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right.
All right, gentlemen, once again, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin with the head of investment supervision at PENCOM. That's Dr. Aminu. Now, the micro pension plan has been launched by the president. What is the difference between a pension scheme and a pension plan? And in particular, what are the high points of the new pension, the micro level that's been launched by the president?
Good morning, everyone. I think the most important thing is there are two basic pension schemes: the defined benefit scheme and the defined contribution scheme. Between these two, there are variants of them, some of which could be a mix of the two. So macro pension is a plan under the contributory pension scheme. So this is a major difference. It's a contributory scheme. I'll give an example. Under the old pension scheme, if you serve the government for 5 years, you are qualified for gratuity. And if you serve the government for 10 years, you have both pension and gratuity. That was 100% funded by government. No individual funds anything. So that's why it's defined benefit, because the benefits are defined based on the years of service an individual puts, before retirement. If you come to the contributory pension scheme, that one is a way of making sure that the scheme is funded by either the employee alone or the employer alone, or the both employer and the employee. However, the benefits are not defined at the time somebody starts work. So it depends on the size of the retirement savings account at the end of the service years of the individual that will determine the size of the benefit. So the micro pension is a plan under the contributory pension scheme because it's also going to be contributory. So this is the major differences between the two, between the plan and a scheme.
In other words, the micro pensions plan is a subset of the contributory pension scheme.
Exactly.
Okay, what does the micro pension plan entail? Who can participate and how will it work?
Okay, if you remember, the pensions, contributory pension scheme started in 2004, in July, 1st July, and that covered employees of the federal government complete 100%, and those private sector employees was 5 and above employees. Now the 2014 Act made some amendments. It then reduced the number of employees an institution should have before it is eligible to participate in the contributory pension scheme from 5 to 3. Okay, so the Pension Reform Act also of 2014 made provision that if you have less than 3 staff, they have only 2, or you are a self-employed person, you can also participate but on voluntary basis. So the one for 3 and above employees is mandatory because the law says you have to do it. But if you have less, then you can do it but on voluntary basis. And it's simple. You go to a pension fund administrator of your choice, open a retirement savings account like you open a bank account with any bank of your choice, and you contribute an amount into the retirement savings account on periodic basis. Now, if you look at the ones that are compulsory for them to participate in the scheme, their contribution is on monthly basis and is mandatory. So you have to do it on monthly basis as a period. For micro pension, there is no stated period. Somebody is a mechanic, I don't have any work today, I don't generate any money, but tomorrow I may have a very big job that may earn me like thousands of naira. So if I decide to make contribution tomorrow, that's okay. If I decide to make it on weekly basis, that's okay, it's acceptable. On monthly basis, 2 months basis, however is flexible to the individual. The individual can contribute. The major diversion with the mandatory scheme is that in this case there is no employer contribution. It's only the employee that is going to contribute into the retirement savings account. And that money will be split into 2. That is contingent portion and that is pensionable portion. The contingent portion is 40% of whatever you contributed plus whatever income is generated by the PFA on the amount. So for example, you contributed 1,000 naira this month. The PFA invested, and by the end of the month, they are able to generate, say, 100 naira. So the total amount in the retirement savings account will now be 1,100. So the split is 40% of the 110, which will be 440 naira, while the remaining 660 will remain in the account for pension. Now, this amount, the 40% contingent, you can withdraw it anytime you wish.
All right, Dr. Farouk, we are going to go into the nitty-gritty of these explanations, so that viewers will also understand what you're trying to explain. Because, of course, it is a complex plan that is also workable. I read in one publication that quoted your spokesperson as saying that the commission carefully examined and studied other jurisdictions with the same demography like Nigeria, countries like Ghana, like Kenya, and India, for instance, where this plan, has worked. And this is the very first time Nigeria is extending, pension plan to the informal sector. Now, one thing about the workability of what you have been explaining this morning, with respect to the fact that we have had occasions, where such beautiful plans are made, But when it comes to execution, we begin to have difficulties. What is the guarantee, that the Commission has done a very good study to ensure that this program or plan is going to work in Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, in 2012, we conducted a study which was actually financed by EFINA, an NGO, Enhancing Financial Innovation and Access, based in Lagos. We studied the whole 6 geopolitical zones of the country. They financed the consultants that did it, but we also were part of the survey process. And we interviewed virtually a lot of people in this segment to find out their preferences to savings and also their intentions about saving for pension. So we have been able to actually have some data that showed to us that people are actually interested, in doing this. So this is the most important issue. And then we also look at what do they need if they are going to participate in this scheme. What are the special needs that they want to see implemented, in having the plan in place. So we use that data, and then we also were able to understudy these jurisdictions that you mentioned, and we saw how they have done it, and the difficulties that they face, and our peculiarities. So we came up with our guidelines and framework that actually depicted what we have seen in the field, based on the views we sensed from Nigerians who are to participate in this scheme, and also what those jurisdictions did. So in fact, we worked on this from 2012 till recently, ending of 2018, that we're able to get the guidelines and the framework, approved, and we issued them. So really, we have taken a very long time to ensure that all the issues that could, the scheme could face, we have been able to address them in the framework.
All right, Dr. Farouk Aminu, thank you very much. So let's pause you now and then bring in the other guests. Malam Madabu Modibo, you are Managing Director of Sigma Pensions. The name speaks for itself. Give us a sense of your understanding of the micro pensions plan.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. You see, the Section 2 of the Pension Reform Act stipulates that the National Pension Commission can come up with regulation to be able to put up a plan where indigent people, indigent means somebody who doesn't have a job, is poor, and so on, can save money to take care of himself during old age. And I think it's Section 2, subsection, either 1 or subsection 2 of the Pension Reform Act, both of the 2004 Act and the 2014 Act. So it is against the background of this section that the National Pension Commission came up with a plan to take care of workers in the informal sector of the economy, workers who are outside the formal sector, both public and private. There are about 69 or 70 million informal workers in Nigeria who make money but for themselves, by themselves. They are not working for any organized institution. And the formal sector, both public and private, federal, state, and companies, do not have more than 10 million workers. Now, the contributory pension scheme of the federal government, managed or regulated by the National Pension Commission, only caters for those 10 million people in the formal sectors of the economy, both public and private, while the 70 million people in the informal sector are not taken care of. So it is against this background, I, as MD of Sigma Pension in 2008, came up with this plan of ERP. We called it ERP, Easy Retirement Plan, where we were unionizing informal sector workers like traders, farmers, hawkers. These boys and girls that you see hawk at traffic light junctions and on the major streets from National Stadium in Lagos up to Babbage, they run around hawking things. So we organized them under a union to be able to meet conditions of the National Pension Commission for registration, which is called employer code. So we use the unions to generate employer codes under the database of the National Pension Commission to enroll them. And as at that time, there was no regulation by National Pension Commission. We depended only on Section 2 of the Pension Reform Act. And we registered about 500,000 people in Sigma pensions. About 20,000 of them started contributing. Then Pension Commission said, no, wait, it's a good idea, wait, there are no regulations. So we are happy to see that National Pension Commission has not come up with regulations, even though about 10, 11 years later. So the essence is to see how the ordinary worker in the informal sector, the poor man, the woman who fries akara on the road, the boy who runs from National Stadium up to Babbage, hawking things, or at the traffic light junctions in the villages, the Okada rider in Kano, and so on. How do they save money to cater for themselves during old age? And we conducted a research that time, both in Lagos and in Kano. I discovered that time that in the city of Kano alone, there were 1 million registered Okada riders in the city of Kano alone. As at that time, 1 million. 1 million motorcycles registered under the Okada Union in Kano City as of 2008. Each one of them was paying the motorcycle owner 300 naira per day to use the motorcycle. He would ride it and make sales of about 2,000 naira every day because every drop was about 100 naira. So he could generate sales of about 2,000 to 3,000 naira every day. And he spent only 500 naira on fueling. The rest is his own. And then he pays the owner of the motorcycle 300 naira. So all in all, his cost was 800 naira when he was making 2,000 to 3,000 naira. So we followed him and found out that out of the profit he made, in the evening he will go and eat food, he will go and drink beer, he will follow his girlfriend to wherever she is and spend the whole money. By the following morning, he didn't have 1 kobo and he didn't save 1 kobo. So that is why we encouraged National Pension Commission to come up with this regulation, and they came up with this. And you can imagine, out of the 17 million Nigerians who are working in the informal sector, if only 30 million can save 100 naira a day, you are talking of each person will be saving 3,000 naira a month, times 30 million. And by the time you invest this money, whatever income that accrues on this investment, and the cumulative effect of that over a period of, say, 20, 30 years, you are talking of hundreds of trillions of naira, which government can use by borrowing to invest in infrastructure at a very low rate. By the time you generate this kind of financial resources in the system, interest rates in the banks will fall. The rate at which government borrows money under the treasury-based system will fall. So money will become cheap. People who have ideas, companies, factories, government can borrow money and execute projects at a very lower cost. And that is part of the benefits of these micro pensions, in addition to providing pension to informal sector people at all age, particularly.
Okay. Thank you indeed. Of course, time will allow us to return to you for further explanation, because he managed pension administrators, meaning that he is neck deep into the understanding of what is going on. But now let's go to Chief Abuja Akonji, a retired Deputy Director of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and a pioneer member and the officer of the proposed Nigerian Union of a Contributory Pensioner. So the objective of the framework, as explained by Dr. Farouk, is to identify the operational structures for implementation of the Section 2, Subsection 3 of the Pension Reform Act of 2014. And with the introduction of a micro pension plan for the private sector workers, who of course are in majority. And with the experience you've had, being a contributor yourself, what do you make of the explanations given by Dr. Farouk in terms of what government intends to do with this micro plan? Is it a workable plan?
Thank you very much. You will notice that the Pension Reform Act came on board on sometime in June 2004 and was amended in 2014. The And also, there are a number of institutions established to support PENCOM. PENCOM itself, PFAs, pension fund custodians, as well as the people to be served. These are the contributory pensioners. But I want to inform you, sir, that our experience has shown that it looks as if PENCOM is far removed from those they are serving. That is the contributory pensioners in the public sector and in the private sector. Those of us who have retired are to be served. And before we were served, we were supposed to have been adequately educated. Our experience shows that, to date, many of our retirees, when they come off their normal duty they have done for decades, it takes them sometimes a year, 2 years or more before they receive their pension benefits. Whereas PENCOM started the documentation of such future retirees, say in the next a year, minimum of 1 year before retirement. What do they do for a whole year? And after 1 year, you still have to wait for a year or two or more before you start receiving your benefits. And when the benefits are received, what we realize is that the amount proposed is rather low. It doesn't take pensioners home, to the extent that a lot of us are living in misery. We are suffering in pains. We are not happy with the entire system. I want to please inform you that when, say, a civil servant who has served for more than 30 years, they are supposed to serve for a maximum of 35 years or a maximum of 60 years before you retire. And probably you have contributed for a certain number of years. What I, in person, received, and many of my colleagues have been receiving, is something like 40% of our last pay package. About 40%. You take somebody who was receiving about 200,000, a director or deputy director, who was receiving about 200,000 naira monthly. He now starts receiving 70, 80, 90,000 naira every month. I know a director from FCTA, who was receiving less than 50,000 naira upon retirement, and he wondered what sort of welfare, at what rate will he now be living in retirement. I must be frank with you, many of our members have died. They have suffered a lot of deprivation. We realized recently that even on there is no PENCOM board as we are talking now. And that board is supposed to work with the established PENCOM to serve us, the retirees, in the public sector, in the private sector. If there is no PENCOM board, how do they take most of their decisions? Where do they take their problems? Who helps to put them right, approve them before passing it to the government and also the private? Also, we realize that contributory pensioners are not listed on the PENCOM board. Something led to a revolution in America.
Now, I would like you to, further your explanation by telling us whether the system is workable, or are you talking about discrepancies in the process, or are you thinking of returning to what it used to be before 2004?
I'm being very frank with you, sir. The system is workable. The system is good. It provides a guarantee of an income to a retiree, a former worker, a guaranteed income flow over the rest of his life. And to that, because it is a regulated pension scheme, you realize that it is always there to serve retirees for which they have prepared, or the retiree before retirement has been making some contributions. So it is workable, it is possible, but there are quite a number of human flaws.
Okay.
All right, Chief Abiodun Akanji, thank you very much. We'll return to you again, so that once you highlight what the current flaws are, we'll know what the potential challenges might be, Kieran, for the micro pensions plan. Let's bring in now Professor Seth Akutsen, who is a professor of economics at Kaduna State University. Give us a sense of what you think the micro pensions plan is all about and what it might achieve.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that let's first of all commend the action of the Pension Commission for coming up with this plan eventually. What it entails is that you have a country as populated as Nigeria, many people retiring into active income, especially in the informal sector. So what this has done is to provide a passive income at retirement. Even if you still want to be active at 60, at 70, it will just be to complement the passive one that you are getting from the pension you are generating. And so this is a brilliant idea. What would have even been wondering is that if we have started this early enough when the CPS, the contributory pension scheme, started earlier in 2004, thereabout, you can imagine the number of trillions that would have gotten to inject into the economy. And at the end of the day, you find out that the economy will be better for it. Now, not only that, a number of institutions like the bank, like the pension administrator have been trying to attract, even the insurance company have been trying to attract small saving from this group. But what has happened now is that it has now been regularized. You now have law backing it. You now have a regulator that is monitoring what is going on. Brilliant. There is, in fact, a lot of benefits that will accrue as a result of this contribution. One, in a way, although it's voluntarily, but you find out that those who are going to contribute, you are going to help them in a way to have a kind of force to say contribution rather than to spend their money. What needs to be done is to ensure that we find a way of reaching them at the point that they are getting this money when they work. They have a number of associations. They have a number of trade associations, trade groups, and all that. Working with those trade groups and guiding them, even we can use the trade group to see how we can mobilize these resources from them, no matter how small. And at the end, you now give them a sense of confidence, a sense of assurance that at the end of the day, there is something that will accrue to them when they decide to retire. But you know that mostly in this artisan, this informal sector, they don't have anything like retirement plan. They believe that they walk through their life until they drop dead. So what this has done is to give them a leeway, is to give them hope, is to give them that the government is thinking about them. And they've not been included in the scheme of things that, for instance, the social net, the social welfare, the social security we're talking about, personally you have that more than 70 million have been excluded. And a number of them are living far below the poverty line, maybe less than $2 per day. And they find out that they just live from hand to mouth. But what do you do to help them to get a sense of saving? And at the end of the day, when the economy is better for it, through this informal funds mobilization, you discover that they will now even have more in the long run and begin to even invest more in the pension scheme. So it's a very brilliant idea, and we are hoping that the regulatory agency will address some of the issues that people have raised associated with this. So it's very well schemed. Now, if you look at other jurisdictions, we've not had cases of failure in the scheme where it has happened. There are teething problems here and there, but we want to say that the scheme has worked in other jurisdictions that they've started. Even our neighboring Ghana here, they've had a very huge success of it. And of course, that money is being invested back in the economy, in the capital market, in the money market. At the end of the day, the economy, the turnaround, will now benefit even not only those who are contributing, but the entire economy. So I think that we'll look at the challenges that may come thereafter and see how to address it. But in a general scale, It's a very brilliant idea. It's going to help those who are, living from hand to mouth, those in the informal sector, those who are even making more but are not saving and are not investing. So because this one, we give them a form of savings and at the same time investment. So when you retire, you are even likely to get more than what you have contributed because part of your fund will be invested in the capital market, in the money market, and then you find out that in the long run, you are better for it, given the fact that every month, at the end of the day, you'll be having something to take home. So it's a good idea coming from PENCOM. I think we'll have to commend them for the exercise.
Yeah, it's a good idea. You also talked about proper management, which of course make the entire exercise sustainable. And that brings us to the issue of frequency of contributions. Now, let's turn to Dr. Farouk Amini once more. Now, incomes of most Nigerians being targeted by the micro pension plan are irregular. And now, that being the case, would the contributions be made flexible? And again, what should there be frequency of remittances on daily basis, weekly basis, or monthly basis, as the case may be? What was the true picture of the frequency of remittances, when the contributions begin?
Yeah. For the frequency of the contribution for the macro pension contributors is very, very flexible. As I mentioned earlier, they don't have to do it like a monthly basis religiously, like for those who are covered mandatorily by the scheme. So for them, they can do it on daily basis, they can do it on weekly basis, they can do it on monthly basis. I mean, whenever you have income, you can contribute. What we try to do to incentivize some regularity, but that depends on the individual again, is that if you contribute, you make a certain number of contributions, and the amount you contributed is up to a certain amount, then you can have some benefits. For example, you can be covered by the guaranteed minimum pension, that you can have a minimum pension that is going to be guaranteed for you for life, just like those who are on the mandatory scheme. So that's just our own way of saying what we want to incentivize. We want to keep it flexible, contribute as you want, when you want, how much you want. However, if the total number of contribution is up to this number, and the size of the contribution is also up to an amount, then you can qualify to have a minimum pension, that will be guaranteed for you for life. If the minimum pension, we are yet to conclude on the guidelines on the minimum pension guarantee, but when we do that, then an amount will be fixed for the guaranteed minimum that is going to apply to everybody who contribute under the contributory pension scheme, both in the informal and the formal sector. So basically, this is how it will be. And also, as I mentioned, in terms of withdrawal, the contingent portion can be withdrawn by the macro pension contributor. Once you make the first contribution, all we demand is that first contribution, when you do it, we mark the date, and 3 months after, you can make the first contingent withdrawal. And thereafter, on a weekly basis, you can go and have access to whatever balance there is in the contingent portion of the retirement savings account. The idea is, I might be a tailor, and my sewing machine is old, and I want to replace it, and I have some money somewhere. I can go and say, well, give me 40% of my retirement savings account balance because I want to use it to buy a new sewing machine, or I want to use it to upgrade my business. So this is the whole idea. Unlike those in the formal sector, you cannot access the amount until retirement, unless for the fact that the law provides that you can have access to the retirement savings account to make your personal contribution towards having a mortgage to purchase a house.
I'm wondering, Dr. Farouk Aminu, clarify this again for the benefit of our viewers and those who, of course, who ultimately will be interested in this. When is the micro pension plan taken off formally? 1. 2, what are the eligibility criteria for participation in the micro pension plan?
Now, the plan has been launched by Mr. President, so formally it has been launched. Now, very soon we'll start registration because we are done with all the logistics. The only issue that we have at hand, which I think will solve before the end of this quarter, is the issue of IT. Because in terms of registration, we're also trying to make it flexible. You don't have to do it like the formal contributors. We want somebody to be able, using any mobile platform, to register. And PFAs already have the technology. But we are working on finalizing an application for such registration to happen. But as I said, I know we have done the testing, we have seen the flaws, we're trying to fix those flaws. Most likely within a month also, we'll be ready and formal registration will start. So this is one. In terms of the...
Eligibility.
Yeah, eligibility.
Who can qualify to participate in the plan?
We're looking at 18 years and above. Any person working in Nigeria in informal sector who is 18 and above can participate in the macro pension plan.
Now, is there a ceiling?
No, we don't have any
If you're
ceiling.
100 years?
If you want to do it, you do it. It's voluntary.
Is the 60-40 split negotiable?
No, we want to make it like that largely because the whole essence is saving for pension. Saving to cater for somebody when he is old. We have seen a lot of cases. Yes, Africa is a wonderful place. We have a lot of family support. Your children are your insurance, at old age, but these things are fading away. If at all you can have some money at that old age, at least to feed yourself and take care of your medical challenges, that will be a very good thing to have at that age. So this is the financial independence that we are trying to promote. So that's what I was saying. You can have access to the 40 to do whatever you want to do with it, but the 60, please keep it till when you need it.
All right. All right, thank you very much. We'll still have more time, so you will be talking more on this issue because, of course, you are at the helm of affairs on this issue as far as this panel is concerned. So we will return to you. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA Network service. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we will continue our conversation on the new micro pension plan.
You move now. To the disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I know what they do them again because change begins with me.
Let's cross the other side of the road.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make her they stop anyhow for road. They cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go they stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have all our four guests here with us. Madam Modibo, you've listened again to the head of the relevant department in PENCOM, explain some of the features of the new micro pension plan. And there are a few things that I would like you, again, based on your experience in managing Sigma pensions, a few things I would like you to help our viewers clarify, because this probably will serve us public enlightenment for those who might want to participate in it. We keep referring to the informal sector. There are professionals who are self-employed and who therefore also serve as independent or dependent contractors, as we call them in law, probably just one or two persons, and they also earn money. So those persons will also be qualified to participate in a scheme like this. But we have an existing system in our cultural milieu, which is called the Esusu. And I'm sure a number of these informal workers that you know about, they make those contributions right now. How much is the new micro pension plan leveraging, from your understanding, on the Esusu system? And how does the Esusu system work in such a way that people are confident to contribute to it, but from the complaints that we heard from Chief Abiodun Akonje with regard to the formal contributory pension scheme, that might be a hindrance to the effective implementation of the new micro pension plan?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. First of all, I would like to state that the importance of this micro pensions plan is such that beyond National Pension Commission, government should have taken it at the macro level, at the national level, as a social security scheme. It's too important to us in this country because lives of about 70 million people can be impacted by a successful implementation of that scheme. Ordinarily, in civilized societies, if you lose your job, you are entitled to social security. If you don't have a job, you are entitled to social security. Even in situations like Nigeria, in jurisdictions like Nigeria, under this present administration, we have seen a situation where government is saying there is something they call trader money, earn power, cash transfer. All these small plans that government are implementing right now, particularly this Buhari administration, is all geared towards a social security kind of a scheme. So it is an opportunity, in my mind, for government to come up with a coherent, comprehensive social security scheme which can be regulated and managed by the National Pension Commission so that the lives of those 70 million people can be impacted positively. And it doesn't have to be only informal sector workers. Like you said, professionals. When I was MD of Sigma Pensions, Sigma Pension was contributing 7.5 for me. They were deducting 7.5 from my salary. But on top of that, I was contributing 100,000 naira every month to my own. I had two accounts. I had two contributions, one the compulsory one, the mandatory one, and then the voluntary one. So any professional, even if you are in the civil service, you have the right to, you can do these voluntary savings under your account. You can give standing order to your bank every month. They will debit your account and then remit it to the PFA or to the custodian. And then you are part of the scheme. So to me, we should have captured it or implemented it as a social security scheme. And if it is going to be successful, whether as a social security scheme or as micro pension managed or introduced by PENCOM, there's a fundamental thing that we need to take into account. One is that we have to be aware that the scheme itself is voluntary. There is no law that says you must do it, therefore it's voluntary. And if it is voluntary, then there is the issue of compliance. With voluntary, with informal sector workers comply voluntarily and key in, contribute so that they can benefit from it at all age, or they have to be enforced. It has to be enforced. If you say you must force them, then it's no more voluntary. So to my mind, there's a need for government or PENCOM to come up with kind of regime of incentives to encourage informal sector workers to key in. And there is no price that is too high for this. At the end of the day, beyond the contributor, government will benefit from this money more. You can imagine if 70 million people will contribute 100 naira every day. That's how much the economists can tell you is about 70 billion per day. Time is 365 days. Time is, say, 20, 50 years to come. You can imagine the hundreds of trillions of naira. It is only government that can consume such financial resources for infrastructure, for other things, and then companies and private organized businesses. So government should be able to put up incentives. And these incentives have to be either tax holiday to whoever is contributing or matching grant. Government can collapse all these N-Power, trader money programs and say whoever opens a micro pension account and contributes 1,000 naira every month, for a certain period, government will match it for you equivalent amount. Many people will rush and do it. And government can say, okay, every month if you contribute 1,000 naira, government will give you additional 1,000 free for 1 year. But beyond 1 year, you continue your own contribution, because within 1 year, you will have seen the benefit. You will have seen the balance in your own account, so it will encourage you to continue to contribute. Secondly, you cannot do it at the federal level alone, because these informal sector workers are mainly regulated, or they mainly relate with local government and state government institutions. So how do you incentivize them? Federal government can work with the state government to say, okay, if you register as micro pensioner or pension contributor, you go to government hospitals, you don't need to pay for consultation. Just show your card, you get free consultation. Or if you have your child in a public school, you don't need to pay tuition. You only pay for books and so on. It's an incentive. Or they will say they give you free fertilizer or subsidized fertilizer. All these things are the regime of incentives that government needs to do to make sure this micro pension plan succeeds. Otherwise, people will not have confidence. Even the contributory, the mandatory one, you can hear Chief, Chief he was talking that they are not happy. The army left, National Pension Commission, this thing. The police left. They have their own PFA. They left the private sector one. They established their own. The army, the same thing, they have pension department. So
one of the reasons why ASU was on strike.
Exactly. ASU universities wanted their own. So what is the essence of the reform?
Modibo, I'm not cutting you short, but you're going to round off now with what I'm going to ask you. Because when it comes to management, you have experience in that. We also recall that we've had a lot of issues in Nigeria in terms of managing the funds raised by pensioners. Of course, we can recall the story of those who carted away with some huge sums of money from pensions fund. And now let's talk about the defined exactly. Now, what are the guidelines for risk management framework for licensed pension operators? Because that is what is going to, if such framework is tailored, towards ensuring or assuring Nigerians of a protection of what they are contributing, especially the people in the private sector, then it will make sense. What should be that risk management framework?
This is I'm very happy about this question. This is the kind of thing the contributor needs to hear, not the complaints about delayed impairments and so on. I'm not saying delays should be condoned, no. National Pension Commission should work towards finding out solution to the delays in approval of benefits and so on. But the investor, the contributor needs to hear that he's, unlike the defined benefit, which is managed by the civil service under the Office of the Head of Service, unlike that one that there is no guarantee. You can work for 35 years. The day you retire is the day that the government or your employer will know that they need to source for the money and pay you. So you may wait for 5 years before you get your money. But the defined contribution, the money is already there even before you retire. So the money is safe. And this is what I want PENCOM always to be telling people. The money is absolutely safe. Even the PFA that manages that money does not have access to the money. The money is locked under key at the custodian's office, the pension custodian. The pension custodian can only move the money based on the instruction of the PFA for investment destinations, to a stockbroker to buy shares, to another bank for deposit, or to CBN for treasury bills purchase or bond purchase and so on. So it is absolutely safe. And these movements also, the PFA does not have absolute right. They must do so under guidelines of the National Pension Commission. And on a daily basis, all investment transactions you do have to be electronically transmitted to PENCOM on a daily basis. So that by the following morning, if you exceed your limit on certain investment vehicle, PENCOM will know by the following morning, and then they will sanction you. And if you do so, they will sanction you by debiting you with certain penalty that will make it very unattractive for you to be violating the investment guidelines.
All right,
just add a point there, that the custodian, they also gave guarantee to the total amount under their custody. So should any kobo be lost under their custody, they pay off. And these guarantees are signed and sealed. And it's also very important, like Alhaji Adamu mentioned, that from 2006, when contributions started to date, we have never had any case of infraction under the contributory pension scheme. Not at all. No record of that. So monies are safe.
Yeah, the only part of the complaint, Chief Akanji is coming in now. Part of the complaints you hear is that some of the PFAs do not accept voluntary contribution beyond what is mandated by law if you're in employment.
I think perhaps maybe just to give some few points there. What we want to do is to ensure that the money you are getting is genuine money. We don't want somebody to go and steal money from somewhere and just put it into his account with all the tax incentives, no taxes and so on. So what we said is, if you are doing any voluntary contribution, if you are an employee, do it through your employer. So we know that the employer that is sending the money to us, and we know that we are guaranteed that money is actually clean money. That's one issue. On the issue of delays mentioned by Chief Akande, it's important for us to know that the contributory pension scheme has two basic components. The contributory portion that we all see, PFS will give us our account details every month, money hits our account, we see alert. This is the amount in and this is the balance. And also the accrued rights. For people who worked for federal government before and up to June 2004, they have what you call accrued rights, pension and gratuity rights that are accrued under the old scheme. This money is not available in the retirement savings account at all until when somebody retires. And that's the issue Chief Akande was mentioning, that PENCOM had gone and did all the enrollments and we have all the details. We have all the details. We take note of all of those. We file the statistics. These are the number of people. These are the grades. This is the amount needed to pay them. We then communicate to the Federal Ministry of Finance so that appropriation will be made and we'll have money, to pay that amount. Now, when you have delays from government, from paying that accrued rights, then we have a challenge. And this has been like for a very long time. This started in 2014 when we were expecting to be having about 6 billion naira per month to pay off this, liability. And then we're being given only 2.5 on a monthly basis. So by the time 2014 ran out, we had a gigantic liability. And when this government came, they raised the figure to about 5 billion. And this amount was not good enough to pay off the liability and even pay the current liability.
All right, Dr. So Farouk, thanks. But Chief Abiodun Akanji, you'll be taking notes. Let's hear from you. Are you hopeful about the micro pension plan?
There is no doubt that we believe there could be a lot of improvements in the workings of the implementation of the policy. It's very good. It's highly beneficial, for it's guaranteeing a retired, weak person, let me say, to come up with something every month. But then I must say that what we receive is low to take us through. For instance, I will use 2 examples quickly in just 40 seconds. Sir, our former head of state, Musa Yar'Adua, was sick for some time. Likewise, many of us who are at this age fall ill, and we are entitled to at least have minimal health care facility, NHIS. At point of retirement, the National Health Insurance Scheme is withdrawn to retirees. Who does not fall sick on a weekly, daily, or annual basis? We don't have. If the former head of state, Yar'Adua, who eventually died, if he had survived, like the present President Muhammadu Buhari, would have been better. We want him to be alive. One is alive, the other one has gone. Many of us are suffering similar health challenges, and we don't have resources to take care of ourselves. I'm saying that we need to do something for, in terms of Medicare. Then we reliably learned, that about 56 billion naira was made available to PENCOM to pay retirees, pensioners, some amount of money. which is the accrued benefits that should be, they have not administered that fund till now. Secondly, we realize that funds that should have been made available to retirees and held by the functionaries of the system have not, let me say, was borrowed to the federal government recently. That's about how much? 6.3 billion, that's trillion naira. This money, finally, I want to note that PENCOM and many other institutions are not relating with their target beneficiary. Target beneficiary is me and you, everybody, whether you are already retired or not. I'm being very frank with us. We must do something to relate with us. We are not relating with us. They are supposed to have organized this union of contributory pensioners. They have not organized us. They are supposed to be training us. They are supposed to be reaching out constantly to us.
Yes, Dr. Faruqi, you come in, but not exactly now.
Okay.
Not exactly now, because who feels it knows it, right? So he is making a point because he's directly affected. But let's return to Professor Seta Akutson on the issue of how this will cascade down to, of course, enrich the nation's economy in all facets. And I want to ask you this. The pension managers, the fund managers are supposed to be doing business with the funds, if I understand the concept of it.
That's it.
Now, what kind of investment, should they be involved in? Because, of course, there's a lot of risk in investing pensioners' money or would-be pensioners' money. Now, if at the event of investing into a business that fails, what happens? Now, what would be your advice to this effect?
Well, we just heard from the Pension Commission that they've not experienced any default in the course of the implementation of the Pension Commission. But let me say that the PFAs are very cautious, and that is why you notice that return on investment from people is very low. Now, you see an inflationary rate that is going towards 20%. And at the end, when somebody retires, you see the return investment is single digit. So you discover that the inflation has eat up into whatever return on investment they are going to give you. Not only that, again, you also find out that the areas where they are investing majorly is in government bonds, treasury bills that currently goes for about 13, 14% or more. So even at that, you still have inflation eating deep into it. But the law restricts them. They are being guided by law. It's not something that you can just reach people's money anyhow as they would done, like somebody who just come and drop money for them and say, do whatever, become a fund manager for me and do whatever you want. So they are guided by law. So they are restricted. Because of that, they are playing it safe. They normally want to err on the side of caution. But sincerely, the area of investment is fairly limited to the money market and the capital market. And the capital market, within the last few months or few years, have not been too favorable. We'll be experiencing some bearish, outcomes. Although there are a few stocks that are doing well. And one thing you should know that when there is a lot of money coming from the PFAs to invest in the capital market, it affects the bullish trend in the market. And so because of that, you find out that as they're investing in the capital market, the return on investment is eroding, is going low. So they have no choice than to work within the limit of law. But the truth of the matter is that what has paid off because of the long-term nature of their work is to invest mostly in government bonds and treasury bills. But of late, the treasury bills have been oversubscribed. So you find out that the tendency is that you go and bid for the treasury bills, and you find out that you lose. But you are not losing any money. Your money will be returned back to you and all that. So it is, we want the Pension Commission to review the law guiding investment in this, so that a little they can provide for some percentage for risk taking in terms of that money, because if not, we'll continue to have this low return on investment in all that we do. So these are the areas that I think the PENCOM should look at to find out that what other area. But people are also looking at the infrastructure. That if we work because of the nature, the deficit infrastructure nature of the country, that what the pension fund administrator could work with the PENCOM to find a way where government, when they take this money, they invest in infrastructure so that people also can be getting some benefit. And not only that, we see that, yes, we don't have infractions from the PFAs, but who is rating them? And the law provides that they cannot invest in any instrument that has less than BBB rating. Yes, but those are for the investment instrument. But what about the PFA themselves? Who is rating them? So we need to bring back, private rating agencies, like those who are rating the banks and all that, to rate the PFAs themselves, to see their fiduciary performance to the clients, to the contributors, to those they are serving. So if we find out that any PFA is not delivering in terms of its rating, once the rating goes below a certain threshold, we now know that they should be penalized or they should be warned, and at the end of the day, their license could be withdrawn. So these are some of the things that we could do. You find out that they'll be on their toes, they'll begin to work. So, and also, they should assess how, this PFA, the return investment from this particular PFA, return investment from this particular, they benchmark them and see which PFA is returning better. That can be done from the PENCOM angle. And then with this, you find out that the return on investment for the contributors will be better for it. And so these are the areas we want them to look at. And research has shown in women, when women are involved in some kind of this thing, especially in business, in whatever, that the loan they take from the bank, they return better. But if you look at the trend of contribution, even the current, the ongoing one, women are very low. So when we bring women into the contributory pension scheme, because some of them earn a lot, so we find out that the net will be expanded. So they should concentrate more on the women angle, so that, especially for the micro pension, you find out that you begin to get a lot of return there. And the issue of delay that they've talked about, I don't think we should discountenance that. For instance, one of the things that people may have reservation, and you find it difficult to enlist the enthusiasm of the micro people who will be involved in this, is because of the news about delay. An artisan if you tell him that, look, if I put my money, after 2 working days, you are going to pay me. He doesn't want to come and start hearing stories. Now you are now paying him after 5 working days and all that. These are issues that the PENCOM should look at it. Then they should give penalty. It's not only the PENCOM will penalize the PFS, and the PENCOM is the one taking the penalty. What will the contributors, what will they gain from the penalty? For instance, if you delay paying me after 2 working days, just as we're doing with alert, if alert fail, they don't pay within 24 hours, they pay 10,000 naira in the bank. So if you have those kind of penalty that is accruing to contributors and say, see, if you delay paying him for those 2 working days that is stipulated by law, after the 3rd day, you are going to pay this amount to the contributor. You find out that this thing will work out. Nobody will want to, default, or nobody wants to delay. Nobody wants to cause anything. So we cannot continue to say that delay is not an issue. It is an issue, but let's penalize it.
All right, Professor Seth Akutun, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. You recall that I had asked the question earlier, how much, for instance, we have borrowed from the ESUSU system, to get about the framework for the micro pension plan. That's very important. Those who make contributions to the ESUSU, assuming there are 10 or 20 persons, you know that by the 10th month, it will be yours to receive. If it is the 20th month, it will be yours. And there are no stories. When stories come, they know the way of sorting it out, including the trado means that they will sometimes they go the native way, sometimes to sort that out. We have some tweets here, actually, from Nigerians who are making contributions to this conversation this morning. And first I have Festus Akimbo. He says, PMB's launch of micro pension scheme or pension plan, rather, for the mass of unregulated workers in our informal sector should be applauded. Federal government must ensure it's well managed and set up systems that will enable small amount of cash to be remitted at irregular intervals over a long period of time. Sunday, Michael Amakoji tweets. It says that the launch of the micro pension plan for informal workers should be commended as expected to serve as a respite to employees. However, for its realization, the implementers should go beyond the level of blueprint and paperwork to ensure its full implementation.
All right, from Omobola Horn. The micro-pension plan is a good initiative by the federal government for Nigerians in the informal sector. However, it's not about putting good policies in place, but the workability. How does federal government plan to sensitize those in the informal sector? About 70 million Nigerians are in this sector. What sensitization program does the National Orientation Agency put in place to create awareness on radio and TV stations?
Shakiru has this tweet saying the micro-pension plan is a welcome idea and many Nigerians would want to be involved.
All right, from Deledek Solomon, as we applaud the federal government for reforming the pension scheme in Nigeria, we recommend the strengthening of institutions of governance or micro-pension plan to walk the path of maximum benefit for the Nigerian workers, nothing less.
And this is from Law Alpha C. It says, activating the micro-pension plan is a lofty initiative, but I pray that the Nigerian factor should be out of this. The scheme, or rather the plan, would require thorough sensitization and orientation to work.
Now, Gabriel Uche, I recommend the strengthening of the institutions of governance or micro-pension plan to pave way for maximum benefit for Nigerian workers.
Haruna Idris tweets, now please, is the contingent portion, that is to say of the pension, available to contributory scheme to withdraw to pay rent, for instance, from the 44%?
Hamid Abdul Rahman, Buhari has done it again. It's a highly welcome idea. It will artisans, retired and resigned, well, citizens, I hope I got what he's written here. Well, retired citizens to contribute actively. The present scheme of 25% after 3 months of out of work need to be revisited for review. Nigerians will even develop more than expected. You guys are the mouthpiece of the masses. Questions asked are true reflection of citizens. Kudos to you guys.
Now, Jimmy T. Martins has this tweet. It says, the upcoming young ones have had bad experiences from their retired parents. When they are due for pension, they are usually not paid or not paid on time. What fate has this new program guaranteed to Nigerians?
Kingsley, before we round off this program, I'd like Dr. Farouk to talk on this very important aspect of this conversation. And that's at what age will the micro-pension contributor be eligible to access his or her account? And in the case of a deceased person or a missing person, how can their account be accessed? What is the regulation like?
For the age of access is 50 years, because that is in the Pension Reform Act 2014, so we left it at that. But
even for the micro-pension?
Yes, even for the micro-pension plan. If you want to access the retirement portion, the pension portion, then you can do that at 50. But because, as I said, this is a self thing. You know, somebody is doing it for himself or for herself. So if you want to delay it till when you are 70 or till when you are 80 or 100, you can do it. It's basically a choice. But the pension portion can be accessed from age 50. Now, the other issue you mentioned,
deceased person.
A deceased person is the same as with the formal contributors. You know, you approach the PFA, they have to do all the necessary documentations, and the money is going to be released to the
next of kin.
Yeah, to the next of kin. In fact, not necessarily next of kin, but to the estate. You know,
of the deceased.
Yeah, of the deceased. Now, if you can.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. The issue of delays, I want to say, this only happens to those with accrued benefits. Macro pension does not have accrued benefit, they're not to it. Those working in the private sector, they also don't have any accrued benefits, so they don't experience any delays. There are some state governments that also fund the accrued benefit, you know, regularly, so they don't have any experience with these delays. So delays with the accrued benefits is only when there are delays from funding it, because it's just legacy liability of the old scheme that was brought into the contributory pension scheme. And this is going to go up to a time. After some time, there will be no more people working in the federal government with accrued benefits. So there won't be any delay. And hopefully, the government will continue to fund it regularly as it used to be, and then we don't have these delays anymore. So macro pensions, they don't have any delays
Are
at all.
states and local governments involved in the contributory pension scheme now nationwide?
Yes, they are. Some are. Actually,
that's why I asked the question nationwide, because there were complaints that not all states, I remember up to a couple of years ago, that not all states had, as the expression goes, keyed in.
No. There are only about 11 states that have passed their pension laws and are implementing. Some are partial. But when you take states like Lagos, like Kaduna, like I think Delta, they're doing it perfectly.
Contribution.
They're doing the contribution.
All right, so those who are still out of it, they will have some backlog to deal with in future, because they will still have those accrued benefits and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely.
Madam Madibo, your closing thoughts.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are coming back to the issue of what we need to do beyond micro pensions. There's a need. We must first congratulate the National Pension Commission for institutionalizing the issue of micro pension or informal sector savings in Nigeria. But because of the enormous potentials involved for government to leverage on and raise cheap funds, for business establishments to leverage on and raise cheap funds, for banks even to have access to deposit at very low price, there's a need for government to look beyond PENCOM, for government to look at this micro pension, to converting it to a kind of a social security scheme, to be able to incentivize the nearly 70 million people to see if we can get near complete compliance.
All right, Adam Modibo, we'll stop you there. Chief Abiodun Akonji, we can feel you, but just in 10 seconds or thereabout, what's your final thoughts?
Thank you very much. There have been a few pending issues with PENCOM, that is the administration of the scheme. The law provides that every 5 years, the scheme should be revised.
I was going to raise it. I like that.
This is the 15th year. This is supposed to be the third review this year. We have not seen anyone. That's one. That is one. Number two, the amount being paid is too low. Doesn't take us home. 3, we need health care in retirement. Everybody needs it. Nobody knows who will fall sick tomorrow and die tomorrow.
Okay.
Number 4, sir. Number 4. We tried to register over the last 5 years or more as a union, NUCP, Nigerian Union of Contributory Pensioners. We have not received our certificate. We please plead with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Productivity, Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, to please release our certificate.
Okay, thank you. Just 1 minute.
1 minute? We don't have up to a minute.
1 minute.
Okay. Very, very rapid.
Very briefly, yes.
Yes. He raised an issue.
Reviewing.
Yeah, about the review.
Every 5 years.
Yeah, the Pension Reform Act has made a provision for that review because it's a constitutional matter. And we have, actually, the government asks us to give them all the liability that accrued based on this to pay. And we've already advised government. But this is as the 5%.
Are you going to pay the backlog when
finally? Definitely, because we involve an actuary and they gave us the figure. But based on the return on investment by the PFAs, we have been able to actually increase the pension of virtually about 63% of those who retired under the contributory pension scheme by the end of 2018.
In 1 or 2 sentences, Professor Akuson.
Yes, well, I just want to please appeal to the PENCOM to ensure aggressive enlightenment and sensitization awareness across the country. And also, they should look at a situation whereby, can we have a micro PFAs where those areas can be managed and others? Let's look at those areas and see what we can do.
Professor Seth Akutsin of the Department of Economics, Kaduna State University, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. Appreciation also to Chief Abiodun Akonji, the retired Deputy Director of the Federal Civil Service, and also a member of the Nigerian Union of Contributory Pensioners, which is still in the works. You heard him a while ago pleading for the release of their certificate. We also like to thank you, Chief Akonji. Thank you very much. And our deep thanks also to Malam Adamu Modibo, former Managing Director of Sigma Pensions, and also Dr. Farouk Aminu, Head of Investment Supervision Department at PENCOM.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that does it for our discussion segment. Let's see if we can go over now to our foreign desk to take some stories on the foreign scene.
Ugandan security forces have successfully rescued a kidnapped 35-year-old American tourist and a Ugandan driver, Jean Paul, after they were snatched by gunmen last week. Report says they were found at Ishasha in western Uganda, near its border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, after being kidnapped inside the famous Queen Elizabeth National Park, close to the border with the DRC on the 2nd of April. A joint operation by the police, army, the Ugandan Wildlife Authority was immediately deployed with the mission to locate and rescue the kidnapped victims after authorities maintained that the kidnappers were within the borders of Uganda. Now, in America, the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, who oversaw Trump administration's controversial immigration policies, has resigned. President Donald Trump announced that departure while emphasizing the government's plan to toughen immigration policy amid a surge in border crossings along the southern border. A senior administration official said Trump, who has recently expressed growing anger about the situation at the border, asked for the Homeland Security Secretary's resignation.
And that's how we concluded today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Hoping you had a great time watching the program. My name is Kieran Umari, wishing you a great week ahead.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kieran in thanking you for being with us. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, have a lovely day.